The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Shepard Smith, Head of Marketing here at Gravitate, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. The topic of today's conversation is virtual events and the terrific member data they generate. And while we have quite a bit to discuss, we welcome questions and invite you to submit them at any time using the written chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. Everyone in the audience is muted. I'll be sending all of you a link to a recording of this webinar afterwards. Our presenter today is Rob Miller. Rob is a CAE who many of you know both as a Senior VP at the Trade Association, 340B Health, and as President and co-founder of Avectra, the company that invented the modern web-based AMS with the launch of NetForum. Rob asked that he be introduced today as a data evangelist because he's that excited about today's topic. Rob, I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Great, and thank you very much, Shepard, and welcome everybody. And I was sitting around today thinking about what kind of picture I should have to show off that I'm a data evangelist, and what exactly does it. Oh, Shepard, did you stick that? That's not the one I'm looking for. There we go, the data evangelist. In fact, this was back in the day when we actually got to go to actual meetings, and so I was in my suit and everything. But where we are today is most of us are probably working from home. We're now running online events, and we have a lot of data as a result of that. So we're going to talk about that topic today. And our philosophy at Gravitate is data analytics for everyone. So this is a session for you. It's not just for the IT department. We want everybody to be using these solutions successfully. We believe attendees stay more connected when their organization knows them better. And why is that? Because when you know your attendees better, you communicate with them about the things they care about, you offer them benefits that they really want, and when you get really good, you start to think ahead of what they are going to want in the future. But a lot of our clients and organizations I've talked to have expressed data challenges that they have that are preventing them from getting to know their attendees better. And these were the ones that really were the most common: silos and integrations, duplicate and inaccurate data, sometimes management buy-in. There's probably some items on here that you recognize that are probably causing challenges for you to be able to, analyze all these online meetings. So how well do you know your attendees and your invitees? Do you know them somewhat, or you do know them intimately? And how do you currently make decisions, through gut feeling or with confidence? We're here to help you understand your attendees and members intimately and make those decisions with confidence. So let's talk about these online meetings, these virtual events, and some of the great new opportunities. So first of all, the first bullet, event performance, metrics, activity, and history, those are things that are probably very common to you. Those are things that even with our standard events that we're tracking. We're tracking how many registrants we have leading up to the show. We're tracking, whether they attended or not, and we're tracking that kind of thing year over year. But now we have two new categories of information that we can track, such as registrant behavior and sponsor exhibitor benefits. As it relates to the registrant behavior, you can look at what are the most popular sessions, what the chat activity is, and overall engagement with that online event. And with the exhibitors and sponsors, you can really start focusing on impressions and connections that they're having with the attendees. I've listed a number of application companies here on the side of my screen. Each one of them provides different capabilities, and some of them will have great access to this information, and some won't have as much. So, you'll want to take a good hard look when you're determining what solution to select to make sure it's tracking the kind of information that you want. So let's talk a little bit about some of those event performance ones. Again, these are the ones that are going to be the most common to you, like registrant metrics. Obviously, everybody likes to have a goal, and they love to exceed that goal. Something very great to look at. You might want to look at your revenue or your counts by a particular state. Those things oftentimes help you pick future years where you may want to have a conference. And obviously, you always want to be able to look at your registration and activity year over year. And it's always great to be able to see registrants and revenue when you're looking at all that kind of information. Similarly, you want to have the planning information leading up. You know, a weeks out report is always wonderful. That's the one on the left. Certainly, in this particular case, we can see 2019 is doing the best, but you could already tell early on in like week 11, it was starting to break free of the other years. That's exactly what you want that type of report to be able to tell you, that that you're having success, and it allows you to breathe a sigh of relief. Or it may energize your marketing if you're falling behind the prior year. And that's no different with online meetings. Probably the big difference is you probably aren't doing 18 weeks out, even if it's your annual conference, as it relates to something that's online. It might be 8 weeks out or 4 weeks out. So those kind of timings are going to become all that more important. The other chart is showing registration over the last couple of years, but it actually is breaking the data into some interesting segments of who's new, who's loyal, so forth and so on. I'll show a little more of that when I get into the demo. I'm showing you a number of these things on the PowerPoint and screen print, so I can go through a lot of it rapidly, but then I will hit on some of it actually showing the real software. Another item is retention history. This is another event performance item. You know, again, we've got those registration, those retention classes of, you know, new, frequent, repeat, but we can look at that now by how much money they're generating. And it may not surprise you that the newest members could be generating the newest registrants could be generating the most revenue, because oftentimes your pricing will be the most expensive at the end. They certainly may not be getting the member discount. If they're registering at the end, it's your highest price. So these are the kind of, these charts make sense, and they help you, you know, plan maybe your pricing for a future year. And again, similar to the weeks out, this is a trend though for year over year, showing all those different retention classes. So now let's move on to the registrant behavior. These are the ones, this is the new stuff that you should be able to see and get into with these new you know, virtual events. And this is particularly in a case where you're not just running like a one-off webinar like we're doing here today, but you're running maybe a multi-day with multiple sessions going on at the very same time. So, you know, the first one that's obvious is what are the most popular sessions, because now you know exactly who attends which session. Very important new information for maybe determining what sessions you might want to run. And if you notice on the right side of the screen, I have filters. Well, what happens if I filtered on something like executive, or something like you know, student, and then this chart would change, and then suddenly you could see what the most valuable or popular sessions were to the executives, or for those students. Those are the folks who are going to be your future members. If you knew that of what was popular to them, my suspicion is for a future event, you might plan some of those, and then you could segment the data and send invitations to those people directly, you know, highlighting that you're running sessions that they might be of interest to you. So very, very powerful new information. The next one I want to show you is information that you can track with unstructured data. So, you know, these virtual events create a fair amount of unstructured data. So we're not doing it today interactively, but we do have the chat window open so you can ask questions. Well, I'm sure you're doing that type of thing at your in your sessions at your virtual events as well. Well, could be a lot of valuable information that's getting placed into those chat windows. Another place might be when they fill out the event or session evaluation. Also, there might be questions that they actually type the answer. So using semantic technology, you can basically evaluate the words, create a word map, and then you're basically pulling out the words that are of most interest. Again, this could help you identify the things that your listeners, your attendees are most interested in. And as it relates to sentiment analysis, that technology tells us, you know, what are your attendees thinking? So you can organize those words in a word cloud either based on positive or negative words. So if you have an overwhelming number of, say, negative words in a particular session, it may be that that hasn't been a very successful session. Okay, so another one with registrant behavior comes around to engagement scoring. Now, some of you may have heard the concept of engagement scoring before. Oftentimes it's dealt with when we talk about membership, but it also plays in when you get to online and virtual events. In fact, there's some powerful new activities. So the concept here is that when you do engagement score, you need to score the activities that are taking place. And I'll give you some examples. So maybe if somebody registers for a free webinar, they get 5 points. Maybe if they register for a paid webinar, maybe you give them 50 points. Maybe they attend a session, you get 10 points. You submit a chat comment, you get 5 points. You submit a survey response, 25 points. These online tools are capturing all that information so we can suck that out and then we can score it. And once it's scored, we can aggregate all that information, and now you've got some pretty powerful information. And you can, first and foremost, on the left side of my screen, we have categorized all the individuals who participated in our online conference by whether they're high, medium, and low. And then we can use that engagement category as a filter for other things we want to do. So we can maybe say, what is it that the highly engaged people are doing differently than the ones who are just medium, and what can we do to drive those up? Obviously, it's always nice to know who your most engaged members or most engaged attendees are. You know, such things that you might want to then compare that against what were they most engaged with, what sessions were they driving most of their engagement, and that might tell you some good candidates who could be future speakers on that topic, is they might be very knowledgeable about it. It also, again, might help you determine what some future sessions are that you want to have. You know, the far right screen is essentially drilling all the way into one particular individual and how that person garnered all their points. You know, some with registration, from with the connects and chat and all that kind of thing. And in a moment, you'll see why some of that stuff is particularly interesting to your sponsors and your exhibitors. So let's keep pressing ahead. So one of the very important things that you know, exhibitors and sponsors care about when they're participating with these online virtual events is impressions. And in this particular example, this is a 3-day conference, and this sponsor has sponsored 4 different sessions each day. And presumably, maybe somewhere in the online event application, maybe their name or their logo appears, or they get to make a welcome at the beginning. A lot of different organizations do it a different way, but at the end of the conference, you can then show them the number of impressions that they got specifically from their involvement. I mean, this is something that you can't do right now. You know, when you have an annual meeting, you open up the exhibit floor and everybody rushes in, but you don't really know who goes and sees whom. Now, some organizations do try and set up some pre-meetings, and so that helps, but I would say in general, you don't really know. Again, some organizations have done some things, some associations have done some things with RFID, but this is very precise. You know exactly who attended, you know the impressions, and you can provide that to your exhibitors and sponsors that they'll find very, very valuable. Another one is the first one was impressions. Now we're moving on to connections. This is like the next step, which is the attendee is actually reached out and indicated to the exhibitor or sponsor that they are interested on something that they're offering. Again, some of these online virtual systems allow this type of thing. And here, essentially, when the exhibitors set themselves up, they basically said, we offer 5 things: web hosting, website design, training, so forth and so on. And then these, in the upper right corner, these are the groups that or individuals who reached out directly to say, you know, we're interested in these things. And of course, on the left side, you're seeing the overall interest. You know, great thing is in this particular visual that most of them are executives. Certainly any sponsor exhibitor would want to know that, but they also would love to see, you know, director and manager level. Now, the lower right corner is also, this comes back to the engagement scoring. This shows essentially interest by intent. And so the idea here is is that these people attended sessions that maybe this sponsor was, maybe they were a speaker at, or they were just sponsoring. Maybe there was a series of sessions on security administration, that green bar. They would gather some points going to the one that this exhibitor sponsor that actually sponsored, but there's also other security administration ones that maybe that exhibitor did not sponsor. But the tool is going to still accredit that individual points for attending that session. And so essentially what you're telling your exhibitor is this Daniel Eckert, the second one down, is so interested in that topic because they went to your session and they went to 6 others on security administration. So you may want to get a hold of that individual because there's a good chance they're a great lead for you. So impressions, connections, incredibly valuable to your exhibitors or sponsors. You know, the type of information you couldn't provide them now. Now, the thing that's really interesting or innovative about what you can do with this is you can place these visualizations into your website behind a login. So these visualizations can be set there. There's no extra cost from a licensing fee, so that you could essentially create a portal for your exhibitors or sponsors to go in and see all this information, maybe even up to the day or the hour, however you want them to see that information. So lots of new options. And then of course, internally, if you want, you can combine it all together and create yourself a nice executive dashboard. So you can, quickly look at all these things at a high level, really be tracking it and find it very useful. A couple of other quick things I want to mention before I jump into the demo is that, I'm showing you analytics for virtual events, but we actually have a package of visualizations for just about every department in the organization. So we have lots to offer there. And we sell our product on a site license so that everyone in your staff can use it. And if you remember, I said analytics for everyone. That is our philosophy. But it goes beyond just your staff. You can make it available to your boards and committees. We have role-based security, so you can decide on what part of the visualizations you want them to see. And as I indicated, you can, on the right side of your screen, you can embed them right into a website, and you can show them information. You can even turn on filtering if you want. And we have had some clients who've actually been able to monetize some of their data. Okay, so moving quickly through these final things, of course, we integrate to like so many of the popular systems in the industry. I thought you'd be interested to know that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually jump over to the software and walk you through a couple of things. Give this moment for the screen to refresh. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you like one of our demo systems, just so you get a sense of what our software looks like. And the first thing that any user would do is that they would decide on which carousel of information that they want to go to. And of course, since we're talking about online events, the carousel that you most likely want to go to is the event one. And we call it a carousel because, as you can see, it kind of rolls around and you can look at all these different data cards. I'm just going to show you the types of things that a most typical user would do to use our system. Once you decide on a particular data card, you can drill into that to go after more information. This is what I mentioned earlier, is this weeks out visualization that I was talking about that is so commonly used. Actually very hard to build in a SQL database, but very easy to build in a data lake, data warehouse type of product, and you can compare that information. Certainly once you're at this data, it's always very nice to look at things such as, registration type. Generation is a great one. So maybe you want to look at, we always like to pick on the millennials and the generation X, and you can look at the data that way. Tenure is always another big one. Looking at the data in the how long an individual has been a member. I think we all know that someone who's been a member, say, for only less than 4 years behaves differently than somebody who's been a member 20 to 24 years. Now, clearly what I'm doing right now is I'm showing you events data, whether it's online events or a regular event, but I also have it blended with membership information. I mean, that's what that tenure comes from, the member type comes from, but when you blend those data together, you can start asking some really nice questions. So of course you can drill down, look at these different charts, but the next thing that a typical user might do is they might want to say, you know, I really want to share this information with somebody. Maybe I'm going to email it to a board member, or I want to add it to a board book. They can print this information to PDF and make it available. And so you just click this print icon, and I'm going to open this thing up. And it's going to display what was in those charts. And please note that the filters I picked come right along with it. So it builds those right into the report. So if you share this with somebody, they're going to understand exactly what they're looking at. One of the last things that a typical user would do is they'd want to go and look actually at the data. And this is going to show the data that's based on the filters that you use. And you can move these fields around, you can resort them, you can filter even further. And finally, what you can do is you can download that data to CSV or JSON, move it into Excel, move it into another data analytics tool, maybe move it into your e-marketing tool if you're going to send something straight to one of your recipients or one of your registrants. So those are the typical types of things that somebody would do using Nucleus. So very straightforward, very easy. So let's go look at a couple more examples of things that you might find interesting. If you remember when I was going through the PowerPoint, I talked about you know, different types of retention classes. Here's these classes: frequent, repeat, intermittent, so forth and so on. Well, that's all well and good, except I suspect all of you are thinking, well, I wonder what those terms mean. Well, one of the things that we did is we built right into Nucleus the ability to essentially create a data glossary. So essentially you can create a term and then you can put the definition right in. There's an admin console to do that, or we can load the data, that information in. And once it's there, it becomes contextually connected to the visualization. So there'll be a contextual connection to retention class. And so then this little icon appears at the bottom of the screen that you can pop up, and it says, oh, they're registrant by retention class. Well, new, well, duh, they haven't attended in the last 5 years. Once they've attended one in the last 5 years, so forth and so on. Well, you can imagine as you build out a lot of these different visualizations with all these different terms, that you probably have lots of staff who, some of them know it well, some of them don't know it very well. Well, with this scenario, you don't have to know because it's right here. Generally, when data governance happens, you create a big document, you save it to PDF, it goes in some network drive and no one ever looks at it again. This puts it in your hands, puts it available to you so everybody knows exactly what they're doing. I also wanted to show you some information based on, say, like a state map. So this is a great example of you know, just looking at the data a different way. So maybe you'd want to you know, search on you know, let's see, what's a good choice here? Professional level. That's a great one. So maybe you're thinking, you know, we want to run an event. Now this is back, of course, assuming that we're going to actually attend events again, where you might want to say, I want to run one for executive leaders. Well, my gosh, I think that in my particular organization, I better run it in Wisconsin or Florida, or I'm going to make all my executives travel. Or another example might be emerging leaders, and it seems like all the emerging leaders are in Maryland. But you get the idea that can be very valuable when you're looking at the data against a map, and that you can use that to help you make plans either for your conferences or for other things you're going to do. The last thing I wanted to show you from a demo perspective, and then we're going to have a couple of questions, is we created, this was kind of a bit of a community service effort. We created a COVID dashboard started off for our clients to begin with, because they were very interested in how COVID was affecting their business. And of course, COVID obviously has driven everybody to virtual events. In fact, you can see virtual events have really grown. A lot, unfortunately, were canceled. So we pulled this data from places like the Johns Hopkins database, from Breakthrough Healthcare, and there's a couple of things that I want you to take away from this. First of all, what this is showing you is Nucleus is very flexible. It really doesn't care about what type of data you want to track. So if you want to do online events, but also you want to pull data from a 990, or you want to pull from Medicare or Medicaid or other types of information, you can bring that into Nucleus and blend that together. The other reason why I came here is because I wanted to show you that if there are we set up visualizations in the system, but if there happens to be ones that that you don't think that we have, or you want to create a new one, I'm actually going into our visualization builder now. So I want to show you that it's very easy to create a new visualization. So I've gone to this page that has 3 data cards on it. So I'm going to go into essentially design mode, and now you can see all the charts are in design. So the first thing I can do is I could do things such as changing the layout, moving these data cards around. I could create a very extensive executive dashboard with maybe 10, 11, 12 types of visualizations on it. I also can change some filtering. Now, these are the filters that are going to affect all of the charts on this page. Now, the next thing I can do is I can actually go into edit a particular page itself. And once I'm there, I have things that I can do there. Well, the first thing is I can decide on what type of chart I want to create, area bar, double bar, donut. We have all the most popular types in there, and then you pick various things like the dimensions, the aggregations, the colors, whether you want labels on this thing, that kind of thing. So very, very easy to use. And when you're all done, you just essentially back out and save your work. And so it's that easy to create new pages and new data cards in the system. So with that, we have just a couple minutes left, and I'm going to toss it back to Shepard for questions.
Rob, many thanks. We do have a couple questions. First one up, can I share these charts and graphs with members, registrants, or sponsors?
Absolutely. I hit on that a little bit. Maybe someone came just a moment late. So there's a couple ways you can do it. So first of all, you may have seen that I did, I printed a PDF. So you could actually do, go look at a bunch of data cards, filter down, find exactly that insight that you want somebody to see, then you save it to PDF and you email it to them. But through our role-based security, you could set up, say, a whole carousel. We have a couple carousels here, one for United States, one for Italy. You could set up a whole carousel just say for your board, or just for your sponsors, or just for Exhibit, and then you would place the visualizations in there you wanted to see. And then lastly, if you want them to have a special, you only want your members, say, or to see things, you can then embed these visualizations right into your website.
Terrific. The next question says, you listed several online event tools earlier. What happens if we're using a different one?
Okay, so that's a great question. So, we're adding new integrations all the time, and obviously virtual event applications are high on our list right now. So we're building integrations to those, and we have a very competent team that's been building integrations for many, many years. We've been in business for 13 years, and we have a lot of background integrating a lot of things to a lot of websites. So it would just become part of a project. You would tell us what a solution you're using. You would help us get in touch with the vendor. Hopefully they'd have maybe a modern API that we could connect to, and then we'd be able to start pulling that data. And if they don't have a modern API, sometimes we can connect straight to SQL. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And then finally, if it's just a one-time data, we can also just do a straight data import into the Nucleus data lake.
Perfect. Well, it looks like we're coming to the end of our time and should wrap up. Rob, many thanks, and thank you everyone for joining us. As the next step, we have a couple of options. First, Rob is available to schedule a conversation to discuss exactly what might be most helpful at your organization. And we'll be sending a follow-up email to everyone, and it will contain the scheduling link. So please look for that. Also, we have 3 new executive briefs on data analytics for associations on our website that are available right now, nucleusanalytics.com. Under resources, there's an analytics success kit, and you'll find the executive briefs there along with a multimedia array of resources. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We will now end the webinar.